Hello again, I'm Doug Smith, and welcome to a special edition of Portsmouth This Week. We have an opportunity today, we're down at the Senior Center in Portsmouth, to interview Governor Gina Raimondo and talk to her about her short visit here to Portsmouth and some of the other initiatives that she has going on in the state.
It's nice to be with you.
Well, thank you for coming, and
nice
welcome
to
to Portsmouth This Week. This is a weekly TV program on public access TV that we've been doing since 2012, and we just completed our 200th edition of this thing. We'd like to invite you back at whenever your schedule permits to come and spend a half an hour with us. Today we got a short time, so I think I'll just hit a couple questions that might impact on Portsmouth and Portsmouth businesses.
Good.
We saw your letter to the editor on the Daily News on Monday about the manufacturing initiative.
Yes.
And I wonder if you could explain what that is and how that might help local businesses.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. I'd be happy to come back. It's great to be with you. So, Rhode Island has many manufacturers, and I want to support them even more. The proposal I have before the legislature would support smaller manufacturers, specifically would give them an incentive and help to buy new equipment and to train people. So Rhode Island has good programs for bigger companies like Electric Boat, for example, or Raytheon. And I'm saying let's take those same programs and make them available to family-owned, smaller manufacturers so that we'll give them a tax break to buy new equipment and to train people so that they can expand.
Now, so this is like, it's not a grant program, but it's like a loan program? Is that?
It's actually a tax incentive. So
okay, tax incentive, which is another way of...
A tax incentive. So if they spend money to buy a new piece of equipment or to train people, we'll give them a little tax break on what they spend.
Okay. I know you just came from New England Boat Works.
Yes.
Down in Melville. And we have a pretty good marine trades industry, as you saw down there.
Yeah.
Is this the kind of thing that might help some
Exactly,
of those
exactly
companies?
right. So you go to a place like that, which is so impressive, and they need more trained people, welders who can weld aluminum, which is a hard thing to do, engineers, craftsmen. So it's hard for them to find people and spend the money to train them. So we'll say, if you do that, we'll give you a little tax break, which allows them to expand.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
And that's something we can locally benefit from.
Big time. We know the programs work because the state's done it for a while with big companies, like I said, maybe Electric Boat or Raytheon. So, but the average Rhode Islander works for a smaller company.
Absolutely.
You know,
sure.
Like a New England Boat Works, like a small maritime manufacturer. So we're saying, let's give them a chance as well.
Let me just ask you kind of one of my pet peeves. It's about the line item veto.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't understand, because the majority of Rhode Island voters want a line item veto.
Yeah.
And yet our legislators seem unable somehow to actually pull this thing together. What is your take on it? Why do you think it's necessary, and what do you think the chances are of this going forward?
Yeah, well, it is necessary. 44 states have it. It would allow the governor to veto a particular expenditure instead of the whole budget. And it just makes sense. It's just another way to protect the taxpayer. Also, what I'm saying is just put it on the ballot. Let the people decide. Yeah. You don't have to decide. Let Rhode Islanders decide. If it's something Rhode Islanders want, which I think they do and deserve, put it on the ballot. Yeah. So I'm pounding away at it. I hope they do it. If they don't, I'm going to go again next year.
We've been doing the same thing to our local representatives too, so trying to get this thing moving. I want to express my appreciation for your education support.
Oh, good.
And this two-year college tuition program sounds really great. I know a lot of our young high school graduates are very looking forward to something like this. Mm-hmm. What do you think the chances are of that moving forward? I realize it's a budget issue, among other things.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that something will happen. Maybe we can't do the whole thing this year, but I think it'd be a big mistake not to do it. This is all about jobs. It's hard to get a job these days if you don't have some college degree. And companies want to be in places with a skilled workforce. So I think it's a smart investment, and I'm on the legislature to do something. I don't want Rhode Island to be left behind. I don't want our people to be left behind. So I think we should do it.
I agree totally. And as you know, we have a big defense industry here on the island connected with the Navy.
Exactly.
And something like that would, I think, give us a better pool, larger pool of potential employees for these industries.
100%. You're exactly right. I talk to these people, Raytheon. Raytheon is a growing company. I want them to grow in Rhode Island. I want them to add jobs in Rhode Island. And I say to them, what's it going to take for you to add jobs in Rhode Island? Number one answer is skilled workers. So this is about jobs. It's a smart investment, and we should do it.
Keep pressing on that one.
I will. I'll keep pressing.
Another question, and probably the most important one here. I know you came down and talked to some folks in the other room at the Senior Center.
Yeah.
How can people in Portsmouth contact you to express their views on these issues and many others?
It's a great question. I try to be out in the community as much as possible. The best way is, like this, talking face to face. I love talking to them. I'll come back. I love talking to them. You talk to some people. But call the office. Always love to hear from people. Go to my website. Send me an email. Go to my website and send me an email. I'll respond to the email. I put my public schedule online. Every day I'm out and about, half a dozen public events. Come out and see me. So I wanna be accessible to people.
Okay, that's great.
Or you could come to Providence and go to Stop and Shop at 11
Oh my
on Sunday.
gosh, really all the way to Providence? We don't like to leave the island very much.
I know. Sorry.
Just as a final note, we have a very vibrant and kind of involved Portsmouth Historical Society as one of the second oldest community in Portsmouth. And I'd just like to thank you folks up at the state for some of the grants that we've been able to get that help us put our old buildings back together so we can show people what our history is like. So thank you very much for that.
You have my support. It's important.
And Governor, thank you so much for coming down today.
Thank you.
And I hope we can see you again in the future.
Thanks for doing this program.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Hello again and welcome to Portsmouth This Week, the voice of Portsmouth, Rhode Island. My name is Doug Smith. I'm your host. And our special guests today are Conley Zani, the President and Director of Development of the Common Fence Point Improvement Association. Welcome, Conley.
Thank you.
And she brought with her Sue Ferrier, who is the association grant writer. So welcome to you too, Sue.
Thank you.
I've been here since 1982, and I've always looked at Common Fence Point as kind of the place that everybody would want to live because you guys are so organized and you have just a great place to live and to get together in that hall down there. It's something I think every community should emulate. And many of us have enjoyed the music, the art, and everything else that you hold in there, so thank you for that. But I think the exciting stuff is where you're going in the future. Conley, before we get into that in any depth, can you give us a little background on yourself?
Sure, I'd love to. I moved here with my husband in 2009, and when we came here, he knew exactly where he wanted to live. He was a Brown graduate, and he buys and sells companies and made an investment in a company in Providence. And he said, we're living in a place called Common Fence Point. And I was like, what? What is that? And we searched for homes here. We bought a home, and I have fallen in love with the neighborhood and Portsmouth. It's been a wonderful place. So that's how I came to the community and started paying attention to what was happening up in that hall.
Okay, so how did you get involved with the building and the rest of it?
Well, so professionally, I do leadership development and team building work, and my work takes me, I have to get on a plane to go do it. But when I'm home, and I have some pretty passionate hobbies. I teach Zumba. And so in 2013, I walked into a community meeting to see what was going on and if I could teach Zumba in the hall. And it was an interesting, we'll get to the history of the hall and what that particular meeting meant. But long story short, I started teaching Zumba there and really started becoming passionate about what was happening to that hall. So, yeah.
Yeah, so can you, maybe now's the time, can you give us a little background? how long has the hall been there, and where did it come from?
Sure, sure. So the hall was built in 1922. And I mean, I think has an almost iconic status in northern Aquidneck Island as a place to gather. And it's always been, you know, a place for dances and socializing and listening to music and all of those fun things, and just a place for community. It burned down in the 1960s, actually, and the neighborhood came together and rebuilt it. You know, the story goes, the legend goes that the men of the neighborhood erected the hall again, and it's just, it's an amazing story of a community kind of doing an old-fashioned barn raising. And, you know, so things, you know, time marches on, and I think what had happened was, you know, over time, it's all volunteer run. And in 2013, we'd just gotten to a place where we hadn't made enough investments in sort of capital improvements, and the programming, you know, ebbs and flows over the years, but it was a little bit of a low as far as the hall utilization, and volunteerism was waning. And at that moment, the decision on the table was, do we shut the doors of this hall? Which is, you know, in the history of it, you're like, no, you can't do it. And that's the meeting I walked into. And I feel like I was just like, well, let's not do that yet. Let's see if we can resurrect things and get some life in this building. And when you get life in the building, it all turns around. And that's what has happened is we started doing Zumba, and we opened the doors, and we had these gigantic classes, and all of a sudden neighbors were like, I didn't even know my neighbor. And we created you know, this excitement. And that Zumba class then started making investments, like we did the floors, we painted the walls, we ended up pulling the siding off the building and putting new siding, and started some fundraising.
And all this came from the revenue from the Zumba classes?
Mostly. I mean, that was the anchor. I feel like we sort of partnered up Zumba and then Common Fence Music, which has been there 25 years now, coming this fall season. There were some anchor tenants that all came together and were like, we're going to save this. And we've created a partnership with the Newport County YMCA. They run an after-school program in the basement of the hall, and a fitness program where if you're a member of the Y, you can actually participate in any one of the 15 exercise classes happening there right now for free as part of your membership, or you can do a walk-in if you want. Like, you don't have to be. We are going to be running arts camps this summer, actually 2 arts camps and 2 gymnastics camps. And so we're starting to reach out and create partnerships with organizations in our community to breathe life into this building.
Yeah, well, and your enthusiasm is contagious, I have to tell you, as you know. But you mentioned a key word, volunteer, and Sue, let me segue to you.
Yeah.
You volunteered to do this work for the association, but you don't even live in Common Fence Point. Why did you do this?
No, I don't live in Common Fence Point. I do love it. I love the hall and the area. But I think that what we're trying to do is to broaden the definition of what community means. And I think it's especially important in a place like Portsmouth, which really lacks a town center. And there are other communities in our area that have a similar demographic distribution. And I think that these days, when more people are tending to sort of draw in, stay home with their devices, there are fewer places where you can just go out and get together with other people, not just like-minded people, but people who might introduce you to things you'd never thought about before. And, you know, I actually enjoy this. So I was already doing Zumba. That's actually how I met Conley. And once I heard she was thinking about doing a class at CFP, I thought, okay, I know they do Common Fence Music out there. I'd never been out to the hall. So I went out to the hall, and it became immediately clear that there was a lot of potential there, and also that they were going to need a lot of people just volunteering because it's the right thing to do. And my daughter and I are both interested in community service and volunteerism. So 4 years ago, we came out there and said, what do we need to do? Well, we need to clean the basement out because it was your usual scary basement. Had a lot of things growing down there. And it's not it's completely understandable because nobody was using it, and when things are neglected, they take some serious work to get back in shape. But a large group of people came down on more than one occasion, tried to kind of clean things up, sweep, did some painting down there, and made it a space that the YMCA was interested in using for an after-school program.
I was down there, what was it, yesterday, I guess, or the day before, and I walked into the end of your Zumba class, and I stood in the back and say, whoa, this is way too hard for me. But I was amazed at the enthusiasm of you guys on the stage, but also the people that were involved in doing it.
Well, there is also a kind of lower impact version of Zumba that we also offer.
Don't try to sell me. I'm a little bit old for this stuff. So you guys could use volunteers, even though they don't live in Common Fence Point.
We would love volunteers.
How can people contact you to offer services or just to say, I'd like to come down and see?
I think the best way to reach us is through our website, commonfencepoint.org, and our email is commonfencepoint@gmail.com. And that is the best way to reach out and say, how do I get involved? And I think our biggest need is around communication and getting the word out.
Yeah.
So that everybody can be aware of the amazing things going on.
Yeah, I went on your website yesterday and I signed up for the email thing too.
I saw that.
You did.
And I saw you like a few posts on Facebook too, Doug. Thank you.
Well, I do, but and also, as I say, we here at Portsmouth This Week, I think, can help too,
Right.
with getting the word out,
Right.
in some sense. Okay, so you guys both got together. The place has started. You're cleaning it up. What's happened since then? I think some exciting stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
grants have happened since then.
Take on, yeah, exactly, grants.
Right. So fast forward from 2013 to 2017, we've done a fundraiser of nearly $50,000 to do the facelift that is our hall now. We have made our restrooms ADA compliant with a gift from the Champlin Foundation. We have tripled our revenues. Like we're now in the black. We're good, we're functional, we're self-sustaining. So now it's the big vision. How do we take what we're doing and rebrand ourselves, so to speak, and really reach beyond the borders of our neighborhood out into Portsmouth and beyond? And so we wrote a grant to the Rhode Island State Council for the Arts at the urging of Common Fence Music, because they were in a situation where their concert goers were having to stand outside in the middle of winter and it wasn't working for them. And they're like, we need a space. We need to redo this hall so that we can continue our concerts. And they asked me as the hall manager to please write that grant. So of course I had to get Sue's help. And so we had a successful grant application to the state, and we were awarded $187,000 to transform our hall from a simple community center really to an arts and cultural center.
Yeah.
And we brought some pictures to show that. I don't know if we could transition to see those photographs.
Yeah, if we could take a look at that photo, it shows the current situation and then what it might look like in the future.
Yes, so there at the top you see what we look like now, which is a huge improvement from even 2 or 3 years ago.
I think it looks great right now, yeah.
Yeah, oh, and people who haven't been in there, like they walk in and they're like, oh, what just happened? You open the doors and you see this beautiful stage and new siding, but the bottom is the vision. And these were renderings done by some architects to help us be successful in that grant application. Not necessarily exactly what it's going to look like, but just to get people excited and passionate, and it has certainly done just that. And so that's the vision, is we want to become an extraordinary example of community in Portsmouth. Our foundation is arts programming, but we certainly complement and supplement that with all sorts of wellness and community programming and social support programming. And we just want to make sure that everybody in Portsmouth knows that this can be their community center too.
Yeah, and I think too that I consider you guys a cultural resource for the town.
I love that.
And I think we can
Yes, thank you.
segue that into a lot of things. For example, we were talking about the community theater
Right.
as an example, giving performances there.
Right, yes. We've got a performance coming up in June. The date is not right off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing, like an organization like that's like, how can we create a win-win situation and share resources?
Yeah.
We would love to be a hub for that. I would love to work with the Historical Society. I'm anxious to have those conversations with you and your board.
Yeah,
Like, let's make it happen.
that's a done deal. All
All right, that's a done deal. And my goal is to have those doors open from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. And people can walk in and meet neighbors. Another thing I'd like to highlight, we've just created a cafe on Friday mornings. And what's remarkable about this came out of our, believe it or not, it came out of Zumba. We have a Zumba program from 9 to 10 on Fridays.
9:15 to 10:15.
9:15 to 10:15, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we have a lot of special needs kids and young adults in that class. And the instructor in that class recognized, she's a speech pathologist, and she's like, I see an opportunity here. Let's give these kids, these kids run this cafe. So they serve the coffee, and they are working on vocational skills and life skills. And it is magic. So after Zumba, they set up tables. Those that are nonverbal set up tables. Those that are verbal are taking orders and serving coffee. And we have 30 people hanging out and visiting with neighbors and creating community.
Okay,
and
so when is that, on Wednesday mornings?
that is Friday
Friday
mornings
morning,
at
excuse me.
10:15.
Okay.
And we've
And you don't have to do Zumba.
no,
not at all.
you do not. We've actually had a lot of people just know the doors are open and they're coming in off the streets.
We have a lot of tables and a lot of new chairs. So
And a lot of new chairs.
And you like to show
we're
them all.
ready to receive.
That's great.
But it is really like magic. I think all of the programs that are there right now are working together. Like we're all very connected, and that's what's making the magic happen.
Yeah.
And this hall, used to be boarded up windows and plexiglass and you couldn't see in, and vandalism. And now that life is there, people are taking care of this place. People want to weed the little bit of landscaping that we have and
down mulch
and put down mulch, and like everybody's taking care of it.
Yeah.
And it's like it's creating this momentum.
Isn't that a great feeling, though, to have your neighbors, actually everybody pitching in?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And neighbors meeting neighbors, and again, just in
And neighbors in a larger sense as well. Like
Yeah.
those of us, there actually a lot of the most active volunteers don't happen to live in the neighborhood.
Right.
And yet there are plenty of people who see me at a community meeting and they're surprised when my address isn't on Common Pence Point, because it's what you hear all the time.
Yeah, she's in the hall as much as anybody.
Yeah.
It's great. It's
Yeah.
great, and we need more of that.
So essentially what you'd like to do is make this sort of the Portsmouth Community Hall.
I would absolutely love that.
And I think
Yeah.
there's a confluence here, I think, of people like the Arts Guild.
Yes.
I'm sure they're already talking to you guys because you have so
Yes.
much wall space.
We're
and there's
using that
other-
wall
Yes.
space for a gallery, and some Arts Guild members as well as other local artists have already had displays of art. They've had exhibitions,
Yeah.
and that's been very successful. We
Yeah.
introduced them to the community. They've had a chance to sell their work.
Yeah, local artists. And I want to give Wayne Quackenbush a lot of credit as the president of the Arts Guild. He wrote a letter in support of the transformation of this hall, and we're going to be working on ways to partner with them.
Yeah,
So
that'll be great.
Yes, and several years ago they had been looking for, quite actively, for a place to be a kind of arts center in Portsmouth. They had sent out a letter to the community and a survey and said, would you like this, and respond. And yet at the time, they were not able to find a location that was available for rental that met the criteria they thought were important. But we've since been in communication with them, and they're excited because there's a lot of art happening in Portsmouth in the schools as well. Arts for
Absolutely.
Life Day. There's a lot going on.
We have such a fantastic and interesting history in this town from 1638 onwards, and one of the things the Historical Society we're trying to do is connect with the Arts Guild and maybe have some kind of a exhibit of paintings of famous sites or historic sites in Portsmouth.
will you please
And having
put
something
that on
like
the walls of
having-
Common Pence Point in our
absolutely, having
gallery?
some place to put this stuff where
Would be
people could
great.
come
Yeah.
and see this stuff would be great. So,
Right.
And when you do that, be sure someone takes a good picture of the mural in Melville School, because Melville Elementary School has a tradition of always leaving behind an arts project that the graduating students,
Really?
yes, they leave it behind, and sometimes it's been a sculpture, but they've done a number of mosaics. But they also did essentially a kind of tourist map of historic sites
Yeah.
in Portsmouth.
Well, in fact, you know, we've produced at the Historical Society that's a driving tour of most of the historic sites in Portsmouth. In fact, maybe we'll give you some to hand out at your events.
We should be putting them in Common Fence Point, right? I think there's an
Yeah.
opportunity to all work together. And
You think so?
I was just at the senior center yesterday, and Bob Hamilton
Yeah.
suggested, he's like, let's you know, help promote events
Yeah.
together and really work on that communication. I think we can maybe be a catalyst for making that happen amongst all the different
I think so. I assume there's a list of rental fees for music companies or art companies or whatever that want to come in and rent the hall. How can people find out, you know, what's available and sign up to rent something down there?
Absolutely. So the best place to go is our website, commonfencepoint.org. There you can see the calendar of activities and where we have open space. So the general public is welcome to rent our hall for a birthday party or a graduation party. If you're someone that wants to do some programming on an ongoing basis, like a fitness class or an art class, or reach out and we negotiate that. And we have several partners like the YMCA or like Common Fence Music that we have relationships with that, you know, are long-standing, and so there's many opportunities to get involved and take advantage of this resource.
Okay, and so essentially your website's the key
The website
to
is
just about
the
everything
key,
here.
and commonfencepoint@gmail is the way into that
Now,
to talk to a live person.
Do you guys give discounts to local nonprofits?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I'll be knocking at your door. And
We are about creating the win-win and supporting this community, so absolutely.
Okay, now, so just to recap here, you've gotten the grant, which is a matching grant, as I understand it,
Right.
and now you're in the process of kind of fundraising to meet that second half.
Exactly.
Again, how can volunteers help? Or how do you go about doing something? That's a big nut. $187,000 is a.
Right, and so there's going to be a big contribution from simply our operating expenses at the hall. So come and be part of it.
Okay.
Come participate in the
Right.
fundraisers, in the activities.
So even by going to a musical event, you're helping.
You are helping, absolutely. If you are interested in, you know, helping organize fundraisers, that is great. We have a big raffle going on this summer where we are selling raffle tickets for a $10 donation to the hall. It's wonderful. Like, you get to have all these prizes available
Yeah,
to
sure,
you.
that's
Like,
great.
you know, so that's a little donation kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you know, just get involved. If you have grant writing skills, our grant team is
Yeah.
expanding, and we're starting to see some success.
Even if you just know about a
We're
grant.
just about out of time here,
Yeah.
unfortunately. It goes really fast.
Yeah.
I'd just like to thank both of you guys for coming.
Yeah.
Please go to the Common Fence Point website, Improvement Association website. Come down and see what they've got. And thank you
you.
very much for coming on. I hope you see you again in the near future here.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
That's it for me. See you next time.